Isn't it the best when someone who you share a common interest with tells you about some of the products and services that they love that's in that bucket of similarity, and it feels like you've just unearthed the best kept secret in the world. I love that. And I don't know about you, but my inbox has been filling up lately with more and more emails with this person's 5 favorite things or things they found on the internet, like all kinds of things that feel like they speak to me, but they're a little bit random, and so they're fun, they're playful, and they're not quite so like professional business hat on. So I had this idea to take that concept here to the podcast, and I put together this slim little gift guide for documentarians, storytellers, and for those of us who want to live life wide awake, for family-centric creatives in business. So I am just going to call this Marie's 12 favorite things for 2019. I wish I was like Oprah and could be like, and you're going to get this and you're going to get this, but maybe next year. So all items listed in my list here are linked to in the show notes. So there's photos, there's links, and I am not an affiliate for most of these things. This is not some fluffy thing where I just picked all the things that I could get a commission off of and I stuffed it into an episode that I've called my favorite things. This is not that. These are things that I've honestly used, and I'll tell you a little bit about each and every one. So let's get to it. Enjoy the story. For the record, none of the items on this list are in any kind of order. The first thing is my legacy boxes from Mad Tree Woodcrafts. I ordered 2 of them at the end of last year, and I couldn't be happier with these things. So I'll link to them in the show notes with photos, and I'm also going to add the dimensions of my boxes in there because I ordered custom boxes from them. I mean, it's been almost a year. They might have my dimensions on their shop. I'm not sure, but regardless, I'll put my order specs in there in case you're interested. But you might be wondering, well, tell me more. What is this? What is this legacy box you speak of? So I had this idea a while back to intentionally craft something for each of my kids that I'm going to give them at some point in time. And it might be when I'm alive. It might be when I leave this world. I'm not really sure, but I've just started living my life and sort of collecting things that I want them to know about me. Maybe it's like a book that stood out to me. Maybe it is something about them, like a piece of them, like the way that I see them. Like maybe it's something I write about them. So it's different than a memory box because it's not just something that's stuffed with their childhood. It's more of this gift of my heart, if you will. So I talk a lot more about legacy boxes back in episode 4 on Intentional Documentary. The episode is called What's a Legacy Box? So if you want more on that, check that out. But I love my boxes from Mad Tree Woodcrafts on Etsy. So let's turn this back to you. Who could you start a legacy box for? So again, like I've started one of these for each of my kids, and I've been filling it slowly. They live on a shelf in my closet. I have a huge closet, and they bring me so much joy when I walk into them because I know that like I'm building something. It's truly a long-term project. Or maybe it's not a legacy box, but a memory box, because I can tell you these makers, you will be so happy with any box that you order from them. Item number 2, all things chat books. Oh my goodness, I love them. I have not tried their subscription service yet, but I use the app on my phone, the Chatbooks app, and I order from them pretty frequently. I'm almost embarrassed to say, as a photographer who, I know a lot of listeners are photographers, I have rarely pulled out my DSLR this year. I don't know, should I pull myself out of the photographer bucket anymore at this point? Because I kind of feel like it. But I don't know how I used to carry my heavy DSLR with me when I had a toddler, a baby, and all of the luggage that comes along with having little ones, because today I'm like free. My kids can handle themselves. I don't have the luggage we used to carry, and my camera just feels so darn heavy compared to my phone. So yeah, I've been kind of just leaving it behind in that aspect. So, but anyway, chapbooks. I love their photo books. Go back to episode, I think it's 16, where I talk about what I put in them, because I put in my books just so much more beyond obvious photos of moments and tiny stories. And there's actually a list. That's at fearlessandframed.com/016 if you want to go directly there, but I'll link to it in the show notes for this episode. Recently, I started ordering their prints. I say recently, that was probably 5 months ago, and I've ordered several orders of their prints since. Now, they're not on photo paper. It's more like a cardstock material. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I do think the quality of the images is a bit lost because of the paper that they use, paired with the fact that I'm using my iPhone and probably have bad lighting. And I am actually not a fan of the camera on my iPhone. I need a class on that or something, but I love the ease of the whole thing. I love that my phone fits in my pocket. I love that I can order them through just a few pushes of the buttons on my phone. I love that they are super cheap, and that every time I order these prints, I add some for my kids. I let them pick a few every time, which they love. I'm actually getting photos into their life, which, that's a really big deal, right? So last, I think it was June, I made a collage out of the photos to hang in my husband's garage workshop. I just taped them together into this big frame, and it honestly looks fabulous. So I've put a photo of that in the show notes as well. And I just ordered the string that they sell. I don't know if this is a seasonal thing or if it's a long-term thing, but it has these two little eye hook type things. I don't even know. It's the string itself is almost like a wire. And so there's a loop on the end of each end of the string, and then across the string are a bunch of little clips that you can hang the photo prints on. I love it. I wish that they made it in silver, but the bronzy copper, it's nice as well. I hung one in my daughter's room already, which I kind of wish I hadn't, because this would make for an amazing stocking stuffer. So again, pictures of everything Chatbooks related is in the show notes, and I am an affiliate for Chatbooks. If you go to checkout and use the code FEARLESSANDFRAMED off of your order, you will get $10 off of your order. Item number 3 is the Story of My Life book from Target. So this is really, it's a guided journal / notebook that allows you to write the story of your life. So have you done any historic documenting? And I'm not talking about ancestry stuff or events in history. So when you sign up for my bookkeeping service, which I'll tell you about that a little later, they ask if you need help with historic bookkeeping. So what they're asking is, do you need help with past months of your financials that you haven't done the actual bookkeeping work on? So that phrase inspired me to dub going back to record our own past stories as historic documenting. When I had thought about that concept, a whole world of documenting was opened up to me. And this was a few years back when I realized I was photographing everything just in real time, what was happening in front of me. For so long, that was my norm. But the reality is that we can still document stories of the past. So if you look back at your memories and your history, there's probably some important stories in there that you have not yet to record. Maybe it's because you're overlooking them because they're not on your radar, or maybe they've just straight up been forgotten. Maybe you can't record them in the way that you would have. Maybe some of the stories have ended, or things have changed, but there are other ways to document, of course, besides photography, like with Storybox, for example, which was who we spoke with, Jeremy from Storybox, in episode 67, or in writing. So a while back, I found this book at Target called The Story of My Life, and it is a book for exactly that. It's more for your childhood history, and even just some questions on the way that you see the world. I have honestly just really enjoyed sitting down for even 10 minutes a week and filling out a single page, answering just one question. It's been this light but yet like long-termish project, meaning this isn't like a big to do on my plate. It's not some big project I have like just devoured, you know what I mean? So it's that slow and steady pace has made this just really delightful. And I don't know, there's just something about going back and looking at some of the stories that shaped who we are that is comforting, I guess you could say. This would make a fantastic gift for you to fill out for yourself, or to give, like to fill out for yourself, but also fill it out like for your life, but give it to your kids. So I've actually purchased 3. I purchased one for me to fill out just because, and then I've purchased one to fill out for each of my kids. And then I bought one for my husband to fill out. And then I am adding some blank ones into my kids' legacy boxes. I might be some kind of a freak, but I did. I really love this book. So as always, I've linked to it in the show notes at dangerouslygoodstories.com/068. Number 4 is the one thing on my list that I have not actually used. So I am putting the Academy from the photo organizers on here because I interviewed Kathy Nielsen of the Association of Professional Photo Organizers in a previous episode. I'll link to that in the show notes as well. And just fell in love with what they are doing. And she gave me temporary access to her classes at the time, and I'm kicking myself now for not completing them because, oh my goodness, the content looked so helpful. And one of the things that really stood out to me that I would love to start doing is she was talking about adding stories to the metadata of your digital photos. So they actually offer 2 different classes, one that's for digital organizing and one that's for the tangible organizing. And then you can also buy a bundle as well. So and just side note here, while I'm thinking about it, you can also become a member and become a certified professional photo organizer through them as well, which is super cool. But anyway, I just think that, like, what a gift to yourself and to your family to actually like organize and make use of your photos. So check this one out. I've linked to everything in the show notes. How many times am I going to say, I've linked to this in the show notes? But it's just the natural thing when I come to a close. But anyway, moving on. Number 5, Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. So you might be thinking, what? A second brain? My first brain is already going crazy and I can't shut it off. Why would I want a second brain? I'm going to have to try my best to rein it in on this one. In my outline here, this is the longest item on the list because I'm still in the middle of it and I'm so excited about it that I could just talk for days on this topic. So Building a Second Brain is a course, and I can't even like put it into a bucket of who it is for because I'm like, this is for everybody. Seriously. So where to even begin? I told myself not to buy any more education, and then I saw that this was open in early October and I couldn't resist. We have one more week in this course and I'm loving it. Have you ever heard of the concept of personal knowledge management? Yeah, I didn't think so. So So the way that I was introduced to this was that I heard Tiago on Alex Beaton's podcast. Her podcast is called On Purpose. I'll link to that episode in the show notes. And Tiago was talking about all the knowledge consumption happening today and how most people don't have a system to filter the knowledge and inspiration into personal notes that, here's the kicker, can be used later to fuel creativity, enhance productivity, and really help take you from zero to flow. Do you know the concept of flow? We talked about it with Susan Ferraro back in episode 13 a little bit. But essentially, you know what it's like when you get lost in a really good book, or you get lost editing a series of photos that you like just are in love with, or when you're behind the camera and the world just sort of fades away because you're just lost in the moment. And maybe it's just you're out on an adventure. Maybe you're not actually creating, but you're just being. That's flow. And so when I was listening to that podcast, he was talking about how it makes so much more sense when you go to create something, like especially in the writing world, and you have some ammo. And there's actually a quote. I'll try to put the actual quote in the show notes. I heard it in Building a Second Brain, and it's like there's no such thing as writer's block. It just means you're out of ammo. So what he's saying is all these like pieces of inspiration that we're finding in the world, maybe it's something you saw on Instagram and then you're bookmarking it there. Maybe it's an article or a post that you saw somewhere on the internet or on Facebook or on Pinterest. He's not only saying to start like really grabbing a hold of those, but he teaches in this program how to turn whatever that inspiration is into a personal note that you're able to then fuel your own creativity. So you just go to buildingasecondbrain.com and you can see so much more. But the thing that really jumped out to me was that, like, at the time when I had listened to that podcast, I was preparing for a mentorship for this book that I am writing, and that's all about like finding and using the tiny stories of your life. And he was talking about like quotes and little snippets of articles and all this like stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have like all these pieces of inspiration for this book, and they're kind of everywhere, and it's a little bit overwhelming. Some are in my Google Docs, some are in my screenshots folder on my laptop, some are screenshots on my phone, some of them are in inbox folders. Like they're kind of all over the place, and it's really up to my memory for me to remember that they even exist, let alone find where they're at. So he was talking about that and putting things all into one place, but not like dumping all of your information in one place and then just having this library of stuff that you're collecting. And he goes in the program and talks about how that is a waste of time, but rather like trying to figure out where to file it and have it filed in this like one perfect filing system. He talks about pairing all these little notes that you're finding with projects that you're working on. Like the whole thing has been just transformative, as you can see by my energy. So I devoured this course. I loved on the first call. So I did the premium version where I actually got on calls with Tiago, or I should say I had access to calls. I was never able to actually get on the calls, but I remember on the first call, there was this man who was almost 80 years old who was doing this for the second time. Like this is something that there's so many different types of people. There's comedians, there's songwriters, like there's so many different types of people in this course. It's really freaking cool. So again, this would be a great gift for just about anybody who's creating and wants to manage their own personal knowledge. Number 6 is a workbook called Unleash Your Inner Boss Babe. So, confession. I don't have the best relationship with money yet. I'm working on it. I really like to spend money. Let's put it that way. So I heard about this workbook from a podcast, and I can't remember which one, and it was only $20 on Amazon. Come on, $20 for education. So what this book is, it's 21 days of simple activities that give your money mindset an overhaul. A lot of the exercises inside of here are things that I've learned and actually done before, but when you don't use something, you lose it quite often. So I've gotten away from a lot of these things, and it felt like this was bringing me back to some of the grounding work that I really needed for just my energy and my mindset overall. I have a tendency to worry about money, even when my bank account is fine, and to choose projects and tasks based on their monetary potential. Have you ever done that when there's like this thing that seems like really fun, but then you're like, well, but I really should do this. I should get this email out because it might bring in some revenue or like whatever that looks like for you. And some might call that being a smart, profitable business owner, because to be a profitable business owner, we do have to at times prioritize the revenue tasks. But if you're always doing that, it ends up leaving you restless when you're not cultivating your curiosity and your creativity and play for the sake of play. So one thing I'm kind of being reminded of, not only through this book, but with some other things that I'm working on, which you'll hear about as we continue. Not everything needs to have an outcome. And this book, Unleash Your Inner Boss Babe, is helping me have that permission slip I've needed to just be and enjoy creating for the sake of creating, and not always tying everything to a specific result. I think like that is just one of my biggest problems. Like it's really hard for me sometimes to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go and jump in and create this thing unless I already know where it's going to fit into my business model. You know what I mean? So I love this book. This gift, oh my goodness, this gift would be good for anyone struggling with money, or who feels like they are a slave to their should do's and have to's all the time. They're always like being disciplined and they don't really play that much. Or for anyone who has had a bit of a negative outlook on things lately. It could be in life in general. It could be towards money, anything. And I'm sort of raising my hand on that last point. Number 7, hire Aubrey Vovoda of Whole Woman Healing for a one-on-one personal hypnosis. I know you're thinking, what? Are you serious, Marie? I am. Google right now, well, when you're done with this, future me meditations and other themed guided meditations. You know what? I'll do you one better. I'll even add a few that I really enjoy in the show notes to save you some time. But do a couple, do 2 or 3 of them, and really genuinely put your all into it. You might laugh a little at first at these. I totally did. That's normal. But give a few a try, and then do not judge them until you feel how you feel on the other side of them. And if you love how you feel on the other side, upgrade to a one-on-one hypnosis. Seriously. So Aubrey and I recently recorded an episode on intentional documentary that'll play in sometime 2020. And on that episode, at the end of that episode, Aubrey did a quick hypnosis for us right in the episode. Yeah, pretty cool, right? So I had never really understood hypnosis because I had only pictured like people on stage and in TV and things like that. But what Aubrey taught me was that hypnosis is really what guided meditations are. But because it has such a negative stigma around it, a lot of people call guided meditations just because they sound a little softer and safer. So I felt so great on the other side of this. It was such a short little hypnosis that Aubrey did for us that I ended up booking 6 sessions with her. I've had 2 of those now, and I've had homework that she's given me in between, and that paired with the work I've been doing in the book I just talked about, Unleash Your Inner Boss Babe, which is really around money mindset. And I've been journaling and doing a few other things for energy work as well. And all I can say is I'm just loving the effects of how I'm feeling. I'm really enjoying doing my own mini meditations or hypnosis in between my sessions that were crafted by Aubrey. Like, she gave me a framework, but she also created an affirmation that was right for me. And I have never even been an affirmation person. I'm like, I'm not going to stand and look in the mirror and say the same thing over and over and over, but you can't judge this stuff until you actually try it, because it's really powerful. It doesn't change your whole life situation in that moment, of course. You don't get buckets of money that land on your lap. You don't get these finished creative projects. You don't magically have kids who just cooperate and listen 100% of the time. But the energy shift from doing that work is magical. So I'll have to report back when I'm done with all of my 6 sessions, but so far I really like these. This would make a fantastic gift, again, for yourself or anyone who is open to trying new ways to reduce stress and to feel just more free and alive in their day-to-day, I guess is how I would describe it. So friends and family members that you know who are into journaling, self-awareness work, visualization techniques will eat this up. Number 8 is a movie called The Last Word, and it stars Shirley MacLaine. Have you seen this movie? I loved it. And if you're okay with colorful language and you vibe with this podcast, you will probably love it as well. So, not to spoil the whole movie, but it's about Harriet, the main character, who is a bit of a control freak and not a very nice person. And she wants her obituary written before she dies. And once she reads it, she doesn't really like what it says. And so the whole movie is about her journey in this journey to basically have her obituary rewritten in a way that she's proud of. So I love this movie because it is light. It has this rom-com vibe to it, but the story is actually really purposeful. And I think especially if you look at Harriet's character and you start thinking about what your story would look like if you were her. Number 9, The Power Sheets by Cultivate What Matters. This is my 3rd year using the Power Sheets. If you've never heard of them, it's not a day planner. It's a goal planner, which is different, and it's expertly guided. So if you're not good with goals, you're not good with sticking with goals, it's not just pretty paper that you write everything in. Like it guides you through the process. I don't know about you, but I love this time of year. I love nesting in preparation for the new year. I love the reflection. I love the feeling of possibility in the air. And to be honest with you, I do a smaller version of this process every quarter. I do an even smaller process of this every month. And I would even argue to say that I do some variation of this every week, because I love those feelings of just closure and reflection and possibility and moving forward, like all of that rolled into one so much. So, and the Power Sheets really help cultivate that whole process. So this year they've added a calendar in each month, which I think is really freaking cool. I'm excited about this feature in particular because it's in part of it's formerly the Preservation Project, but I'm calling it the practice now, the Dangerously Good Stories practice. One of the exercises that we do in there is to put opportunities for our upcoming stories on a calendar, like stories to look for. So I mean, how many times have you guys heard me say that, like, the vivid mental image of my mom, she's wearing this denim jean jacket with Mickey Mouse on the back, right? So whatever those tiny details are in your life, if you want to notice them, dial in on when those opportunities might actually happen. So I am the practice, the Dangerously Good Stories practice, is going to have an expanded playbook in the coming year. But since I don't have that available yet, I'm going to use the Power Sheets calendar for that. I'm not going to use it for birthdays and events and like plans. I'm going to use it for story opportunities, meaning stories to look for, stories you want to notice, stories you want to record, stories you want to fully experience and savor. So Anyone who you see is spinning their wheels and they've got all kinds of big ideas and they are just ambitious for life, the power sheets are a fantastic tool for them. These next two don't really have to do with documenting or being a creative, but still they have helped me in big ways. So number 10 is a Fitbit. My husband bought me one, I don't remember, 2 or 3 birthdays or Christmases ago. I can't remember. And I had him return it because I was like, I don't need this. I mean, my iPhone has a step tracking thing in it already. I don't need this thing. So, and plus, I don't wear jewelry really. So I wasn't sure if I'd even enjoy having this thing on. Well, earlier this year, I was preparing for a breast cancer walk that I'm actually leaving later today to go walk on. And I wanted to just step up my game, my walking game. So I went onto Amazon and I didn't want to spend a crazy amount. So I stuck with something that at the time was around $140. And I think it's the Fitbit charge too. So I'll look it up for sure. And again, link to it in the show notes. But I freaking love this thing. Of course, like anytime you get something new, it's really exciting at first. And that was one of my fears or objections for purchasing. I was like, well, I'm probably going to enjoy this for a while. And then eventually I'll probably just kind of ignore it. And that is exactly what happened to an extent. But even in my like ignoring state of it, I still really like having the data. I like to see how much I've actually sat at the computer when I should have been walking, and I can tell when my steps are really low. Now, at first, when I got this thing, it was like the best thing ever to be hitting 10,000 and 20,000 steps in a day. And that has significantly decreased as the excitement has waned from that. But it's still, I will look at it and I'm like, it's kind of low today. All right, maybe I should do a little extra. So it really does encourage me to move a little more. I also love that the version that I have tracks my sleep. It's honestly one of the first things that I look at when I wake up every morning. I don't know. I really like it. I like that it tells me not just how long I slept, but the depth of my sleep. And I think that feature is really useful. And then in the app, I've gotten away from using this, but it is so helpful if you are trying to eat better to just pay attention to what you're eating. And so there is a food tracker in there, so you can add the things that you've ate that day, how much water you've had, and it even has the barcode feature so you can scan a food item and it will populate for you. So you don't have to spend so much time looking for whatever the food item is. So, I mean, I had to include this one because obviously when you are improving your overall health and your energy, that just ripples over into like benefiting lots of other areas of your life. Similarly, when it comes to one thing benefiting many things in your life, I do not love to clean. We had a house cleaner in Michigan for 3.5 years and have not hired one since we've moved down here. And it really freaking sucks. I had reached out to somebody who is fully booked, and a lot of the people that I have found, my area is just too far away. And I guess I haven't wanted it bad enough to really keep searching for somebody because I still don't have one. I'm sure I could find one if I really wanted one. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is number 11, a Roomba or some sort of robot vacuum. We have the Roomba brand. I'll link to the one that we have in the show notes. And I freaking love this thing. I got it on sale Black Friday last year. And it was one of those things that I was like, seriously, do I need a robot vacuum? I have a vacuum. I have kids. I have a husband. I can delegate the vacuuming role to other people. But yes, I'm really happy I have this thing. Now, I don't have internet at my home, so I don't get the benefit of the Wi-Fi capability where you get to put it on a schedule and all of that. And I don't love that it's kind of noisy. So I don't like having it on when I'm home working, especially, or when I'm trying to watch TV or something. So my habit has been whenever I'm leaving the house, I try to just do a quick run through, pick things up off of the floor, and then start Robbie. That's what we call him. Before we leave. So my other tip is we have a pretty big open house. So it came with a room divider. So I've learned that it works better if I let him do one room at a time instead of just push the button and give him a free for all. So I've really enjoyed using this thing. And if my counters and my floors seem clean, I'm happy. I mean, there could be an inch of dust on the other, furniture in my house, but if my counters feel decluttered and my floors seem at least vacuumed, I feel pretty good about my house, which of course just skyrockets my energy. So anybody who's struggling to keep up with all the things on the home front, this would be a really cool gift option, and they've really come down in price. Last but not least, I had to include one of my own things, right? This is the Tiny Story Society. So this is my brand new program that replaces the Preservation Project. It's an upgrade, if you will. The Preservation Project, I have loved leading that over the past 2.5 years, but it was only 6 weeks long. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit bigger, and this Tiny Story Society will last for a full year. So what is it? It is the place to be in 2020 to actively use the tiny stories of your life to live awake and highly connected to the people you care about. My goal is to help you stay away from survival mode. You know what I mean when you get caught up in the noise? This was created for busy, family-centric creatives who get caught up in survival mode easily. And I'm raising my hand. This is something that is a work in progress. I don't think it's something that you just arrive to, but it's something that you work at. Less noise, more noticing it's this thing that we tend to over time. So that's exactly what this is. But what makes this unique is that we're not just talking about going for a walk and getting into nature and being present. We are actually using something that's really meaningful to do big, purposeful actions in your life that are not adding more to your plate. But I think over time, you'll see that these little actions that we do, which is we're doing one little action a week for 52 weeks in the Tiny Story Society. These little things are not something more on your plate, but they become something that you're doing instead of other things on your plate. Because I truly believe that when you focus on the things that you want to notice more of, the noise just kind of takes care of itself. But if you focus on fixing the noise all the time, you find more noise to fix. So if you want more information on that, go to dangerouslygoodstories.com/society. This is probably a gift that you're going to give yourself, but it's kind of like the Roomba. It's kind of like the Fitbit. It's one of those things that are going to ripple over into many other little parts of your life. So check that out for more. You can get the show notes for this episode at dangerouslygoodstories.com/068. And I'd love to hear from you. Are any of these things on this list things that you love, things that you're excited to check out, or what are some things in 2019 that you have loved? Email me. I'd love to hear from you. Until next week, stay awake for your stories. Bye for now.